Hi, Lisa.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Adam.
Hi.
And more coming
Adam
in.
is connecting to audio. Susan still appears muted,
That's good.
but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, now we have people. We stop talking. That's the best part of all of
Oh, okay. We should continue our delightful rapport.
this. Continue our discussion. We have like 3 minutes to official show. Steven's joining us. Gillette is joining us. Hello, Steven. Hello, Gillette. No, Steven's not here yet.
We have a pair of initials, GG.
Hi, Kim. Oh, I have to say that after they get added. Do. Well, people are joining us. This is pretty exciting. So
Great. We're
yeah,
very excited.
thank you for coming in early, everybody.
Hello,
Hi,
Steven.
Kim. Hi, Kim. Hi, Steven. Hi, Adam. So we're going to start getting going in a few minutes. This is, I think if you got our email today, this is our first Zoom pitch night. We've done it in person at a couple of local establishments, including Westside Bowl, which is doing a great job. Alyssa Weston from our one of our contributors did a great story this week about how people are donating pizzas over there. I think that was Jess's idea.
It was, yes. Not the pizzas, but the
pizzas were your idea. I wish somebody would give me free pizza. And so that's actually done very well for us this week. A lot of people are kind of weighing in on that. We moved to Facebook Live for a couple nights just in the winter, and then we had one planned in March, which was kind of shut down because we were going to use the library in Boardman, and they shut down that week. And so we are now for all of our respective households across the valley. This is our first Zoom, and so as folks come in, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your support. It's kind of been a big day for us today. It's our 6th anniversary, as I mentioned, and we are also starting to open it up so people who want to can make voluntary contributions. It's kind of a big step for us, and Mandy Jenkins, our publisher, will be joining us if she's not here already, has a great piece on medium.com, and one of the things she pointed out was this maybe wasn't the first thing we were going to do, but given the uncertainty of the times, not knowing how some of our partners are going to, weather the pandemic, and given the support we really have gotten in the community in our first 6 months, it felt like now is the time to kind of open that up. So that's kind of the other part of our excitement today. But I kind of want to introduce folks as people are joining us. I'm Mark Sweetwood. I'm the local editor for Mahoning Matters. With us is Jess Harden.
hey.
Hi, Jess. Justin Dennis, another reporter.
Hello.
Hi, Justin.
As you can see, I live in a Purell factory, along with Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and Dr. Amy Acton.
The safest guy in the state is the person who lives in a Purell.
I'm a Purell hoarder.
Yeah. And then Jeremy Harper, our content manager. Hi, Jeremy. He is over there in Pittsburgh Gold. In the background. So really what we do on pitch nights is kind of just, we want to hear from you. We would like invite everyone to get on the chat function right now. As we hit 6 o'clock, we're officially started. And if you have questions, ideas, suggestions, we want to hear from you. We want to hear about the stories you want us to do. We want to hear what we're doing good, what we should be doing better. And we want to hear what is going on out there. How is everyone weathering the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic so far? What are you doing? How are you keeping relatively sane and comfortable? And what are your impressions? Please share with us. So I'll be here. We'll be talking. We'll be answering your questions, and we hope you have a fun exchange, and it's our first time. And technically, I should also point out, on top of Mandy Jenkins, who's going to be joining us tonight, Julie Westfall, who's our central editor, is sort of putting this whole thing together. She has been doing a yeoman's job trying to make sure that we look as normal as possible on Zoom. So we've done this in person as a group. We've done it on Facebook Live as a group, and now we're sort of all sheltering in place and talking to you that way too. So if you have questions or ideas, whatever, join in. I see Stephen is telling us he's worked from home for about 10 years, so life isn't that much different. But for not going out to the shops as frequently, that is something I think we're all starting to feel a little bit right now. It's been kind of a change in all of our lives, and just going out and socializing. My favorite Friday night is in a nice bar like the Riser. And Board was one of our favorite places to go, and playing a little Keno and just the staff, because we know everyone there. And that's been kind of one of the big adjustments I've had to make, and just kind of starting to feel that loss a little bit right now. What about the other new work from home folks, Jess and Justin?
I think my history in doing this job, you always try to go to the spot. You get spot news. You go here. You take pictures. You meet with people. People want to meet individually. Now none of that's happening. Now all the production, except for a lot of the video production that's happening at television stations, is just what can you get over the phone? What can you get by email, and how can you try to connect with people who you can't necessarily meet with face to face, which is usually how you try to do. It's the best way to do reporting.
It's almost the averse. Yeah. For years in journalism, we're like, don't be lazy and we rely on email and the phone. Go there and talk to people in person.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough, because I feel like we get a lot of our ideas by being out and about at meetings and talking to people. So while there's no dearth of things to report on during the pandemic, it's definitely challenging not to have feet on the ground in the same way.
Yeah, when you think our first pitch night in November was at the West Side Bowl, we had 30 or 40 people show up giving us ideas, and and there's really, this is great. I mean, I'm glad we're still able to connect with folks, but it's sort of that, feet on the streets, being someplace. Remember the day we were at V2 editing your story, and Tracy Winbush walked over and said, "Hey, I've got a story for you." Just stuff like that, where when you're out and about and people can see you. It's sort of different than kind of our existence right now. I do want to say though, I'm really kind of grateful, because a lot of people are still reaching out to us. We almost from day one, we have probably received more tips than we can likely funnel through in a given week. We try to read all the notes people send us, all the tips they send us, and people have still kept that up even during the pandemic. And sometimes it's gone from hot news tips to guidance and ideas and suggestions and stories people want to see, or lists we should be building. So I mean, it's our whole news gathering sort of construct has been upended in the last few weeks. And
even if we haven't responded to each individual one, I guarantee you we've read and are aware of each individual thing. It's just a question of how much time we have in a day with our staff to chase everything that people have said. But it's been an outrageous amount of stuff coming from the community. And I echo Mark, it's been a big help in trying to figure out what's most important to those who are reading us and what they're thinking about right now.
We pivoted pretty quickly and from kind of the daily story generator. I think our whole universe got tilted on its axis a little bit. Kind of the equator of our coverage is sort of the 2 o'clock, Governor DeWine, Dr. Amy Acton updates. And so from there we get numbers, what's going on, and then we're kind of, even though the day's kind of half over, we're sort of trying to figure out, all right, what do these numbers mean in terms of what our stories are going to be, and then what do people want to know about these about what's going on in the news. The big hot story since last week has been how the Mahoning County has sort of led in total deaths, and by our measure, sort of per capita cases, especially when you compare it to the other, more stricken counties in the state. And I think that's, we've gotten a lot of feedback on that, a lot of questions about that. And I think one of the frustrations of covering a story like that in the pandemic, I'll throw this over to Jess, is just how do you answer all the questions? How do we tell people, why is Mahoning County leading the death rate and the per capita cases right now?
Yeah, we've been trying to get some experts in contact with us to be able to ask them some of your questions. So we really appreciate you responding to Mark's emails about questions you may have just about the virus itself and how to protect yourselves during this time. I think that figuring out why we have these numbers has been really challenging, because we don't have a lot of information demographically about who is dying, where they live, and those kinds of issues. We've been following a lot of the coverage up in Cleveland about their deaths, and they've been lucky enough to be able to acquire the zip codes of the deaths in their area, which has allowed them to see that Black people have been disproportionately affected in Cleveland in terms of susceptibility and also in terms of hospitalizations and death. And so, we hope to be able to get access to some of that information, to be able to ask some more of those questions, and to be able to determine if there's anyone in Youngstown who's being disproportionately affected, because we suspect that in a place where there's a difference of, I think it was maybe a decade, 2 decades in life expectancy between a number of miles, that there's definitely going to be health disparities in this particular crisis as well.
Yeah, you can see where our coverage sort of needs to lean sort of in that direction. I would have to say, and I know Justin spent a lot of time tracking this down, a lot of our tips, a lot of our information has come about nursing homes. It really hasn't been from some of the other communities. It's been about concern for, coworkers and loved ones in area nursing homes. And I was, a little surprised to hear Dr. Acton yesterday say that by and large nursing homes have been really cooperative because, the ones that we're trying to get information from really haven't so far. And by the way, if you are attempting to join our go to chat. You can find it by mousing over the bottom of your screen and click on chat if you'd like to talk with us. Zoom is.
You may have to click the more button first to see the chat option. Chat might not automatically appear. If you don't see the chat button, hit more, or you can also hit Alt H on your keyboard to open up the chat window.
Does that work on Macs too?
Macs, it would probably be
Command.
Yeah.
Control.
Yeah, it might be Command.
Just
start mashing buttons. See what happens.
Yeah.
If you lose us, we'll find you.
Also, I'm curious. I'd love to know if people are tuning in at 2:00 to the governor's address as well. I know that that's kind of become a daily fixture of a lot of lives of many Ohioans, and so I'm curious if that's something people are tuning into. Are you watching that? What kind of information are you wanting from those updates? Because I know what we look for and notice that is missing, and so we're definitely interested in that too.
I see Ed Goyce is joining us. Mandy, hi Mandy, how are you today? Want to say hi, Mandy?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, nice background.
Well, I wanted to look like I have many books in my bedroom. All of us are trying to find out how to look a little bit more professional from home these days, I think. I'm no exception. I even comb my hair just for all of you guys. So I'm very glad to be able to see all of you and talk to everybody there locally.
I actually wear a blazer at all times, no matter any. I go to sleep in this blazer.
I changed my shirt for the first time this week, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Don't let him tell you that, guys. Mark always dresses up for video chats.
Oh my God. The worst. Hi, Susan. I'm looking at people. If you guys have questions, just let us know. We will buzz you in.
Yeah, we can unmute you.
Unmute you and talk to us. So Gillette looks like she's
Okay.
There you are. Hi.
Hi. I am one of your readers.
Thank you.
You asked the question about the daily updates at 2:00 from the governor. Those are rather lengthy, and I appreciate what you put in your afternoon edition. And I like it if you wait until after they've done it so you have the local statistics. I'm not going to sit and watch that every day. It gets a bit, you sort of have to stop thinking about it sometimes. And I'm pretty much homebound right now, so I like what you're doing.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
We actually moved the timing of our afternoon newsletter because it used to come out at 2:00. Then one day we went, the update started at 2:00. And so Julie, our central office staff, goes, I think we should move it till 3. And so we took our almost 5-month tradition of 2:00 afternoon newsletters and pushed it back to 3:00. So that way, as you suggested, it's a little bit more updated with the current stats and some updates from the state. So that was the good thing about being only 6 months old is we can be pretty, loose and quick on our feet. So.
I have another. Do you mind moving away from this topic, or
whatever topic you have the floor?
There was a lot of disruption around the originally scheduled primary election, and I hope that you will stay on top of that. I myself, by the time I realized it was necessary, I should vote absentee rather than probably going physically. It was too late to go through the whole process. It really takes a number of days to get your ballot and get it back on time. So I hope you continue to stay on top of that. I at least received a postcard today from the Secretary of State, and I imagine
one of those?
All of us who are registered to vote should have received that.
Right.
I had applied for my absentee ballot actually within about a week or so after I realized that I still wanted to vote. I haven't heard anything yet, but I got the ballot. But it's a fairly long process by the time you go to the Secretary of State, print it, then you have to fill it out and then send it to the Board of Elections, and they'll have to get it back to you. And then of course it has to be back by the day before their final.
By the 27th, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess they're counting on the 28th, the 27th, that your ballot has to be postmarked by then. And you have to reach out to the Board of Elections to be able to procure an absentee ballot. And I'm guessing you have to do that probably like a week before you have to have it postmarked by, I would imagine.
Yeah, they're just recommending as soon as possible.
I wouldn't wait until then.
No.
Yeah, probably.
I say this because for a number of years through the League of Women Voters, I worked with the Board of Elections. We had an election monitoring project for 25 years, and I was involved in that. And it will be a mess if everybody submits their application right at the end. And then there'll be a lot of angry people because they won't have time to get their ballot and then get it back on time.
It has to be postmarked by the 27th. Am I correct?
27th. Yeah, and I worry that there's just going to be such a decrease in turnout. I imagine that's inevitable given the situation, but that just is really unfortunate.
And there may well be people who this process is going to be a challenge to them, so there needs to be encouragement. And there are groups working, I know, to try to get the ballot to everybody and to see that they vote.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. And how are you doing? What are you doing during the pandemic to stay safe? Tell us.
Trying to shop online and curbside pickup. However, I have spent the last 5 or 6 days trying to get another schedule for pickup. So I'm eating through the freezer and canned goods. I have
my mom has been trying to get a delivery window, and I guess you just have to like refresh because they're just not available very often. And
you don't know when they're going to post the next day. So that is, I am fortunate that I have younger neighbors who go more frequently but I'm not going to ask anybody to bring me a whole big load, a bottle of milk, a loaf of bread, some eggs, something like that. Neighbor across the street brought me a bunch of bananas the other day.
Well, if you need anything, let us know. We will send Justin over with a cart full of stuff. We'll take care of you.
Yeah, okay. We're happy to do your grocery shopping.
We are. Just keep in touch.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
More on that election topic. Does anyone else have any questions about what's going on that we might be able to answer at this point, or things that relating to the election that you think we should be focusing on? Try to, put those in the chat if you have a question, or maybe we could unmute you and you could explain, what's going on. But there's a lot of different questions that we've heard from a lot of different people, things that might just need clarified, or things that people aren't sure need looked into.
One thing that strikes me is you did that nice sort of overview. We should probably, I don't know if we ever tap that into a list just to kind of anchor it someplace on the site, but that probably would be a good idea, because I think, as Gillette points out, there's a lot of interest in that, and I want to make sure that people don't get lost by the process. So we should take another look at that. Thinking out loud.
We've got some additional questions right here.
Yeah, I'm looking at, do you see Megan's question?
Yes. How do you feel the national narrative around response to COVID differs or is similar to the local response? And what do you think is most important for Youngstown residents to focus on, aside from staying safe and at home as best we can?
And I think we turn to Justin for the answer here.
Oh, gee, thanks. The national narrative around response to COVID. So I think nationally what's being reported on is how long the country waited to react to this pandemic, to take the proper steps. And I think the governor, even in the last couple of days, has been pointing out that Ohio started off very strong on mitigation measures and started off earlier than other states. There's talk about comparing this state to that state, but there's so many, I think, factors to consider, like population density. New York is obviously a state that keeps coming up in the news. But as far as how it differs from the national narrative, I think Ohio is kind of being put, I don't want to say ahead of everyone else, but Ohio is kind of being
used as an example.
Used as an example of what one state can do when it takes very strong and its action is very proactive about this. As far as what's most important for Youngstown residents to focus on, I think this is kind of a situation where everyone across the country should just be focusing on themselves and focusing on keeping themselves healthy. Officials have reiterated time and time again that this is something that everyone has to sort of take a part in and do make these choices daily for themselves to make sure that they don't unwittingly infect others. So for Youngstown residents to focus on, I think it's just focusing on, living your life, doing the things that you need to do while also being hygienic and keeping with Ohio's guidelines as best you can. You have to, there's questions of, well, what about this business? What about, is this business considered essential? Or, my brother's sister's cousin-in-law is going to work here, or they, are doing X, Y, Z. What's the law on that? I think the message coming from the state government is there really isn't going to be a clear-cut law. You have to sort of internalize these guidelines, make the decision for yourself where this situation falls in those guidelines. So as far as what's considered an essential business, they did lay out a broad set of guidelines, and they're kind of hoping that everyone interprets that on their own. So this is kind of leaving some of the responsibility up to the citizens.
Well, real quickly, I was thinking, comparing the national sort of narrative to the more local one. I will say where I give big props to, by the way, I'm told now that everyone has the power to unmute themselves if you want to join in. But one thing is different between the local and the national narrative is I think the state's done a great job of the 2 o'clock kind of consistency, hitting that. The national one, the White House one, could be anytime from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And it's really difficult, I think, for people to kind of be aware of that narrative, follow that narrative as closely. But when you have the consistency, if you're a big, Judge Judy watcher at 2 o'clock, boom, it goes off and DeWine's there. And I think that allows people to have sort of a different connected connection to what's going on. I think it makes a big difference. I'm sorry, Jess, what you were going to say?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd also be interested in hearing what people think about that difference. But I feel like the Ohio response hasn't been nearly as partisan as the national response. Just in thinking about the difference between the president's briefings and the governor's briefings, there seems to be a focus on a certain set of data that we're given access to. And I just in noticing people's comments and people's kind of universal love for Dr. Acton, especially from Youngstown, people seem, it doesn't feel as political as I think it could feel in Ohio. And I think that that's been a really important difference. And aside from issues surrounding abortion, I think it has felt very non-political just in reporting on it. And I'd be curious to hear what people have felt about, what the energy of the briefings has been as well.
I see Sally has unmuted her iPhone, so she might have a question for her. Sally? Hello, Sally? Oh, I was very wrong, apparently. Hi, Sally. Jump in if you want. Sorry.
Might have been an accidental unmute.
An accidental unmute.
So Ed asks us for the big picture of the primary election. Why are so many incumbents running unopposed, and how can we change that? I noticed that too. And that's a question probably for either parties, it seems to me, and anyone can kind of jump in and talk about this if they want, but it seems like there's just no candidates being fielded. I guess if it comes down to like the citizen, what can we do to change that? We'll run or talk with, your local party leaders about who could run.
But I think in November,
really sure.
I think in November, you're going to see, we have more Republicans running this November than we had on the general election in 2016. So locally, at least in Mahoning County. So I think that's probably a sign that maybe things will get more competitive here. I think that's kind of what people want to see. A lot of times people don't like going in, especially like in a primary vote, and just kind of pushing one button. And I think that's sort of something that that we've seen for a long time in the Valley. But you know what? There's nothing stopping any of you from running, Ed. But the reality is that what it really requires are for citizens to get involved in the process, whether it's being a precinct committee person or working the election, on election day for those 15 hours. I mean, it takes people to get involved in the process. So if you look around the room and nobody's running for something, maybe the next place you look is a mirror. Maybe you should be telling people that who are smart that they should be getting involved. That's another way of handling the issue.
I also imagine that there's a sense that incumbents have built up so much of a system, a rapport with followers, voters, et cetera, that it seems kind of impenetrable. I mean, even at like the chili cook-off, who's going to win every year. So I think that
Justin is going to win every year.
But I think that there's generally that sense with some of these like very entrenched sort of incumbent names that we have who've been around for a long time. And breaking into that would be hard, I would imagine.
Oh, it's daunting. I mean, when people run for office, they quickly learn that it's not really as glamorous. Running isn't very glamorous once you're elected. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of social media has been a landscape changer in terms of pressures on politicians. Even now we see, we'll put something up that so-and-so did X, Y, Z, and a minute that hits Facebook, everyone's saying, that so-and-so is lazy or so-and-so doesn't do anything. I'm thinking, okay, well, if you think they're lazy and don't do anything, then run against them and help change the landscape a little bit. But it's daunting. You're giving up a lot of your personal time, your personal life. You're injecting your family many times, and there's a lot to consider. All right, any other questions? Justin is taken off. Justin's doing an interview, so the work never ends. He has a story he's working on for tomorrow, so he's.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you left. I'm sorry. I saw you kind of disappear off my little thing here.
Oh no, I just had to run across the room real quick. I'm back.
Steven, do you want to say, Steven is leaving. You want to say anything before you leave, Steve?
Oh, this is really wonderful. Sorry, I'm not living there anymore, but I'm.
Where are you at?
I'm in Walnut Creek, California.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And what class are you going to go teach?
I teach for the Money Coaching Institute. I train certified money coaches around the world.
Wow. That sounds great.
Their head around money, their head and their heart, not what to do with money, but why you do what you do with money.
What, real quickly, I know you have to go, but in these weird economic times, the Dow, and people are kind of a little panicky right now, do you have any salient advice for folks of what they should or should not be doing?
When I was in Youngstown, I was at Smith Barney and Payne Weber for 20-some years. And I went through the market crash of 87, 89, 91, 93, 97, and then 2000. It'll come back.
Yeah. Don't panic, folks.
Watch it. It's like measuring the distance from your home to the supermarket with a ruler.
That's a great line.
I think I did that on Len Rome's morning show.
Well, there you go. A shout out to Len Rome.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Well, thank you for stopping in. I hope you're.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for following us.
I read them first thing. I go through the phone, and boom, that's the first thing I read of the Morning Matters.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much.
We love to hear it. Thank you.
Care.
Take care.
Enjoy your class.
That was very nice. Oh, I'm sorry. We got to Ed's question too about big picture election and getting people to run. I think that's really, really important. Celebrity. We have a celebrity viewer. Hey, Marty, unmute yourself. I can. I'll unmute you. Oh, what? Wait. There he is.
Is that working now?
There you are. Hey, it's Marty. How you doing,
Good. Good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. No problem.
What do you think about you tell me about the election? What do you think about a person who's currently going to, in November, be challenging incumbent Paul Gaines? So tell me about that sort of onus. Without making, I'm not looking for your campaign pitch.
I can't give a campaign pitch.
Yeah, but I mean, just in general, tell me about what it takes for a person to kind of throw themselves in that kind of arena.
Well, it takes thick skin. You know that. I think a lot of people, especially in this area, don't want to become involved in politics because, it's tough. I mean, the campaigning is tough. It's a lot of time away from family. It's a lot of people questioning everything that you do in your life, questioning every comment that you make,
or have ever made. People twisting words,
putting words in your mouth about things that you have not said or done, but they'll attribute to you, and so it's a lot of it takes thick skin. And it takes a certain person who really cares about their community to be willing to say, I know this is going to be a tough road. I know people are going to take shots at me. I know people are going to disagree with me. But I think that I can do a good job for our community. I think our community needs people such as myself who have those abilities. And it comes down to wanting to serve your community. And it's something I've always wanted to do. As you know, I was a longtime prosecutor, 13 years, and 18 years in law enforcement at all phases. I was a juvenile probation officer out of college. Worked with the FBI for the FBI.
You go into your stump speech, Marty. I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah. That's okay. No. I'm just saying it's with public service. I think that you need to look at the candidate and learn what they are all about, whether they're Republican or Democrat, and decide for yourself who you think the person who's going to serve the community best is. And that's who you should be voting for. So
Well, I'm glad you stepped in. I'm, you know, are you? I hope you're a regular follower of Mahoning Matters.
I am actually. Yeah, I get your email every morning, and you know, I read it. I go to the website when I can, and yeah, I am.
Good having you around. I'm glad. I thank you for joining us tonight. That's excellent.
No, I appreciate it.
You
I
get the
appreciate
political
it.
discussion. I
this.
see a politician guy right there on the screen. It's awesome.
Yeah. The you know, it was funny. I was out earlier. I do grocery shopping. You know, in my family. I have 4 kids. I don't know if you know this or not, but I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 11-month-old.
My Lord.
Yeah. And so we're pretty busy here, but you know, I don't want my wife going out. Obviously, you know, she's still, you know, feeding the baby and everything. And so I go out and I do all the grocery shopping when I have to. And my mom is 83 years old, and I have an aunt who is 94 actually.
All living with you, or
no, they live separate, but you know, I do the grocery shopping for them and for neighbors and things like that. And so I was actually at the grocery store earlier today, picking up things for my mom and my aunt and delivering it. And I got home and logged on, and I missed the first, you know, I think 10 minutes or so of this meeting, but I'm glad I clicked in when I did, because it was right when someone was asking about, you know, why we don't have enough candidates and so on and so forth. And so I'm glad I
that's awesome. How are you keeping that large family of multiple ages sane in the era of pandemic?
Well, you know, I tell you what, I got to give a lot of credit to 2 groups of people who probably don't get enough credit. One is teachers. What the teachers are doing now, between getting the classwork out to these students, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for them in this time is amazing. And I gotta really give a shout out to the teachers out there who are keeping the kids busy, who are keeping the kids still, you know, attentive to the classwork, because it'd be very easy.
And who's the second group? I don't want to catch up.
The second group, I tell you what, mothers, stay-at-home moms, and you know, my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, but she's also, shouldn't say she's a stay-at-home mom. She's a full-time mom, and she also works full-time. And so
you don't want to lose all the mom votes, really.
No. She's pretty fortunate. She gets to work from home, but she does go into the office 2 days a week. She works up in Cleveland, actually, so she's in the office at least 2 days a week. But you know, between her full-time job and taking care of these kids and taking care of this house, I guess I underestimated how much work she did. It's truly amazing. And so you're asking me how I keep the sanity around here. My wife, first and foremost.
So you stay out of the way is how.
I stay out of the way until I'm told to do something. And so what I found myself doing a lot more, and what I really enjoy doing, I like cooking. And so I've done a lot of cooking the last couple of weeks because I have time. And you know, working from home, you know, it's been great. Got to spend, you know, a lot more time with the kids, which I love doing. And
thank you for joining us.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I hope this is a regular thing. I'd like to join.
I think even post pandemic, this will be kind of a regular thing. And
okay.
Like I said, we did it on Facebook before, but this is I kind of like this format, and we're able to get. It's a lot more interactive than I think Facebook was, at least my understanding.
Yes.
But, you know.
Yeah.
It's
I like
much
this.
Push ramp in front of the screen, and then people tell me what to do. I kind of like this. So. All right, take care of yourself.
I will.
Thanks,
if you see another face on the screen, it's my daughter, because I think that she's
the entire family.
She was screaming for me. Yeah, but
right.
So if you see a little face on there, it's her.
I will do that. Marty Desmond, he's running for prosecutor this November. All right.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, buddy.
Be safe, everyone. Be safe.
You too, Marty. So we had a question about whether or not we could do a Zoom meeting that's like a maybe live, but it could be just pre-recorded question and answer session with public officials.
Oh yeah.
Which when we've talked about this before, doing sort of live Q&A and how we would work that out. But I just wanted to throw that, if there's any questions you have, specific questions that could be directed at elected officials, you know, please throw them in chat. We're going to write them all down. And if this does come to fruition, if we do end up putting something like that together, we'll know what you want to know about.
Also, if you have a specific elected official that you'd be interested in getting answers from, we try to imagine what people would like to know, obviously, but you know, sometimes there are things we don't think of course.
Well, and we, you know, one of our first projects when we launched last October, we wanted to have a discussion about the proposed sleep-in high school dormitories or high school by the Judge Teresa Delic, the juvenile court judge, and her group. And we did it, and you know, with our technology, Justin made it masterful for us. But I mean, look at something like this. I think this is a little more accessible. I think that's kind of maybe going forward, kind of a cool project we can definitely do, especially with, you know, with November just around the corner. I imagine getting Marty and Paul Gaines on here, it'd be kind of fun. So yeah, let's people send us questions, send us ideas. We're happy to do that. Susan has her hand raised, I'm being told. So Susan, are you there?
Hi, this is Susan. No, this is Susan's husband, Jim. But it's Susan's phone.
Hi, Jim.
Hi there.
Get out of here.
Thank you, Jim.
Hey, a couple things as I was listening. If Steve from out in Walnut Creek was still listening, as I was listening to him speak, and he was, you know, saying, well, I did this, I did that. I said, oh, my Lord, I know him. So Steve S., I won't say your last name. This is Jim K. Hello. And we served in Rotary together in Girard Liberty from years ago.
God.
He would know that. So anyways, but I was calling just to say real quickly with regard to voting. My wife and I, we voted for in-person early voting. And I hadn't seen anything on the news about this, so I called the Board of Elections today just to be sure, because in some states it wasn't this way. But you do not have to vote again if you did early voting. I just wanted to let people know that in case they did not know. I think in some states that was not the case, but in our state, at least in Mahoning County, you don't have to vote again if you already voted early voting.
That is correct. That is correct statewide. You're right about that. So yeah, if you had already done that and that would be going to your individual Board of Elections, you probably didn't encounter a line. You probably just walked right up to the counter. You went to the ballot box like you normally would if you were voting at a polling place and they had the little cubicle. You cast a ballot just like you normally would, but that would have been any time before the election date. If you actually went to your Board of Election, did that, Mike DeWine, Lieutenant Governor Houston, has said your vote is locked in. It's good. I don't know if there's a way to reference that online, or I know that with absentee ballots you can track where it is in the process, but I'm not sure about.
They won't
at the box.
And if you tried to get an absentee ballot, you're already marked off, so they won't even send you one. So that's another way of knowing that your your vote is.
Yep. Now,
that's a good point.
Am I correct or mistaken in that in some states that wasn't the case? They were telling people, hey, you know, that's wiped out. You got to vote again.
I have not heard that. I haven't heard that at all, and that sounds like that would be very confusing. That sounds like
it sure would.
So, but I have not run into that. We focus as much as we can on the Mahoning Valley. Now we're focusing more on the state. You asked me about another state. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Yeah.
That was a good question, though. Thank
you.
Jim.
Can I bring up one more point real quick?
Sure.
Just that, just a suggestion, you know, and we've never gone on this before, but I know you mentioned at the very beginning that it might be helpful that a little bit more frequently you let your potential callers know how to call in.
Sure. Well,
*9 or whatever it was.
first they have to train me, and then I have to be more helpful to other people. That's probably the big.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we
we'd
pushed
love to
every
make
button
this
on
as
his phone and
accessible
finally
as
got through
possible.
just by luck.
Well, that's a good point. We will, and, you know, that's like anything else. The more we do this, I think the better we'll get. But no, it's
I'm
good.
sure that's the case. Yep,
Yeah.
you guys are doing great.
Thank you, Jim. We appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Jim.
Tell
Thank you for
Susan we
that.
said hi.
Hello.
There she
Hi,
is.
Susan.
I read you every morning.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, thank you, Susan.
Like we're yelling back. Thank you.
That was hysterical. I can't believe
Oh,
That's great.
Jim and Susan are my favorite. They're great.
they're
I
good people. Yeah, they're good people.
I think we need a Jim and Susan talk show.
Jim
I love
K. and Susan.
I'm curious. Marty Desmond mentioned cooking a lot. Have people been cooking anything new, anything interesting? I myself have been engaged in a lot of bread making, and my friend called me a COVID normie for doing that because I guess everybody's doing it. So,
Yeah, Mary.
are you guys
Mary
making
here.
bread? Like, what's going on?
Mary's vegan baking.
pasta. Just making
Pasta.
pasta.
Beans.
I'm just like, what are we having? I'm like, what do you think we're having? We're having pasta.
I have told Justin last night, I believe I have put on 10 pandemic pounds. I think Dane Clausen wants to weigh in. Dane, am I right? Dane? No? Sorry. I thought I saw a hand go up. Whoever's hand that was, I'm
He
sorry.
is still showing muted.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Oh, hello.
Oh,
Hi.
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 How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Enjoying listening to it all. I don't have anything to contribute at the moment, but, I'm soaking it all in.
Excellent. Okay.
Well,
I
thanks
thought
for joining us.
I have a little gizmo here, and I thought I saw a hand go up, and I missed a couple, so I was
Well,
not overcompensating.
if I did that, it wasn't intentional. So,
Well, thank you for joining us. I hope we're doing a good job for you. But at any time, either here or just go to mahoningmatters.com, drop us an email. We love to hear from folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not shy, so if I have something to contribute, I'll let you know.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Nice meeting you. I'm just gonna now that I have control over the board, I'm gonna pull an audible. Hi, Adam Earnhardt.
Oh, geez.
Adam, you're live.
That's mean.
Yeah.
That's mean.
He's drunk with power.
Wait a minute. Because, hang on a minute. If you're really going to do this, you got to get.
Oh, there we go.
I'm actually here. I'm listening to you guys, but I'm actually cleaning up after dinner. So.
Well,
seriously. I'm like, look, here we go, head to toe here.
So, when you're not a star on the Mahoning Matters with the weekly visit to the Earnhardts, you're also a social media expert. So rate us. How are we doing so far in our first Zoom pitch night? How are we doing?
You're doing better than half the.
Oh no, he froze.
At YSU.
Oh.
That scares me about the fall. By
How's
the way.
that?
Is that any better? What are you doing? What is the teaching like at YSU? What are you using? Are you using Zoom? Are you using Blackboard? What are folks? How are they integrating?
Really, everything.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like this free for all. Whatever people could get to work, that's what they're using. So, in some cases, it's mainly Blackboard, but for other people, it's just been trying to, find what works. Mary Beth is not using Blackboard; she's using Microsoft Teams. So hey, whatever works.
And one of the things that jumped out in my reporting in the last week or so when I was talking to Lowellville Local Schools Eugene Thomas about how the school district is handling remote learning, at this time, one of the things he said was that now, we used to have school from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Kids would go home, and that would be the end of it. Now, they're seeing community members come up and take on more responsibility for making sure that every kid gets what they need than have been in the past. It's really kind of a much more village-centric thing. And I guess I hadn't considered that's but that really struck out to me when he said that everyone's kind of taking on more responsibility naturally. It's not like they asked these people to do this. It was like they sort of felt it was a necessity and they rose to that. What have you seen at your level as far as people doing more to make sure that students get what they need at this time?
Well, it's kind of become an all day long sort of thing. Like we're trying to, when we find time, that's when we teach. And we're fortunate enough to have some older kids who can babysit while we run off and do our thing. But for the most part, it's been just trying to find the time. And I think a lot of it depends on what kind of boat you're in, right? I mean, I think there are some faculty who feel like they'll just, do it whenever they can. And, for some of them, that means working at night. But for the people who have never taught online before, it's been a real struggle, but it's also been kind of eye-opening, because I think a lot of people thought, oh yeah, I'll teach online. That'll be so easy. And oh my God, it's like, it's the exact opposite. And so they finally have a new appreciation for all of the people who wanted to teach online all this time.
Do you think,
thank you so much.
Do you think that this will change, that having to make classes accessible online will change how things operate in the future?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is going to change. Well, I mean, this is going to change education just in general. I mean, there's no way that it can't. In fact, I often wonder whether or not, since over the last 3 or 4 weeks, whether or not this is actually going to kind of prompt some people who were thinking about leaving the education field to do so, because I think what they're seeing is this is where we're headed anyway. We're headed to more online learning, and I think a lot of them are probably thinking to themselves, okay, well, maybe now is the time to get out.
Yeah, it's good. I think we can start making lists now of things from shopping to education to parties that are probably changed forever. Some out of necessity, and some because we found different paths. And sometimes those different paths are there for a reason.
Well, yeah, and I will say this: there were always people who were really good at this anyway, from the get-go, and there's one whole group of people who have been very good at this from mostly from the get-go, and that's the students, right? So the students who have already been leading their lives online anyway, are seeing people who are just being forced to come online for the first time, and it's like almost like this reverse teaching. Like I've seen a couple of cases where students are teaching the faculty how to teach online.
Yeah, I hope they're still doing that around August.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, absolutely, we'll take it.
I'm also curious, in terms of access for students, have there been any issue? I mean, I know most students probably have a laptop, but if at home they don't have great Wi-Fi or anything like that, has that been an issue as well? Because I know that we've explored that a little bit in terms of like elementary and high school stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine it's been a little bit tougher for the K-12 crowd than us. But our group at YSU, and I know this is true of Kent and Eastern Gateway too. Man, did they step up and really trying to. Now, so for the most part, everybody was fine. All these students had decent Wi-Fi access, or they had access to computers, or they could get access to computers. So we were getting people access to the technology and the services that they needed. But what was remarkable is how quickly they did it. And I think, there was no plan for this. There was no, it's like but now we know, now we've written this plan, right? Now if this creeps up again in the fall, or, 3 years from now we know how to kind of react to all this. But yeah, I mean, there clearly were some students who struggled. Many of those students, they gave options to actually just drop your classes and get a full refund kind of thing. I mean, I think they've been taking all of this on a kind of a case by case basis.
Hey, you're awesome. I'm sorry to have snuck up on you like that, but
no, you're good. Hey, I wanted to say too, I read Mahoning Matters, but I only read it Monday mornings.
I was going to give you a plug right now. I already had an out, plug coming up, but if you enjoy Adam and his family, and I can't see any of them there, every Monday, the Earnhardts on MahoningMatters.com. It is a series we started a couple weeks ago, and we're getting raves about it, and it's a great read.
No, they're all downstairs screaming for me because we're going to decorate Easter cookies.
All right, well, go to it.
Actually, by the way, this is my escape room. This is where I do all of my work for my classes and everything. And if you notice, there's a mermaid in the background.
Yes.
So this is my daughter's bedroom, my third daughter's bedroom. She never sleeps in here, so it's like the perfect escape for me to get all my work done. I love it. Hey, guys, thank you for all you're doing. We love you.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Every Monday, MahoningMatters.com, the Earnhardts. How's that for a plug? All right. I'm sorry. The drunk with power thing is very real, but it's kind of kind of fun. All right. Well, we should probably wrap. It's 6:52. We'd like to thank everyone who's joined us. Any final statements? Mandy, anything for the record?
For one thing, I dropped a link into the chat so that you guys can tell us a bit how this went for you, looking at topics for future things, if you had any technical problems getting on. This is our first time trying this, hence some of the glitches and us figuring out the tools along the way. But, we want to keep trying stuff like this, so please leave some feedback if you can. It'll help us improve the experience. But more than anything, thanks for being on, and thanks for supporting us. We're only 6 months old, but I think all of us would say we probably all aged about 6 years in these 6 months. And
the Lyndon Johnson thing.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a before and after when we get to a year and see what we look like then. But we wouldn't be able to do it without having great readers and supporters and everyone who's been out there passing along our articles and telling more people about us, because we're every day trying to fight to make more people know we're out here and know that we're here taking their ideas.
How about you, Justin? Anything for the record before we take off?
No, I'm just going to echo what Mandy said, is that we're always available. Like what I said earlier, we get so many recommendations and so much material from the community about things that we should cover, and that's been a huge help. And just please keep doing that. And like I said, even though if we don't get some story in about something you mentioned a month or two ago, I guarantee you we definitely read it and talked about it and considered what we could do. So getting those things every day has just been a huge help. And again, thanks to everyone who's taking a role in us as a publication.
Jess?
I echo both of Mandy and Justin's statements.
You can't echo twice. I can only echo.
I double echo.
You have to say something original.
I just feel I don't know. I was thinking about our launch party 6 months ago, and I just feel incredibly grateful that you guys read our stuff. We had started from 0 readers, and just seeing metrics and numbers and watching people interact has been incredibly cool. And I feel super grateful for that. And I hope that you continue to pass us along. We've been working our butts off. So I hope that is evident. We'll continue to do that. And thank you.
I'd like to echo Jess. So I could do that. So, I mean, I'm fortunate. We have a great team: Jess and Justin, Jeremy, and Mandy, and Julie, and Emily. And we lost Mark Eckert last week, and we're still kind of dealing with that. But I think he's always kind of with us, and that's kind of a good thing. But we're so grateful that people are taking time out to chat with us, call us, email us. It means a lot. We get a lot of feedback. And we really, really, really do appreciate it, and we look forward to it. And 6 months from now will be our first year anniversary. And as I wrote today, in one way, this seems like it can't possibly be six months already. And another way, it seems like, wow, is that 6 months? But in 6 months from now, we did not know about pandemics and all sorts of things when we headed down this path, and we sort of have been learning it along the way and trying to be as innovative as we can. But we can't do it without all the folks out there who interact with us. So thank you very much. It's happy anniversary to you guys too, because you've kind of got us where we are today, and we really appreciate it. That's it. Julie, Jeremy, thank you very much for keeping us going here. It worked really well, and I hope everyone has a awesome night, and we'll talk to you again.